you, David. Thank you so much for being here with us on this short interview about 𝗟'𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗘. It's really been a pleasure. David Covey is our author and is one of the most influential leadership men in the world, as stated in different, newspaper and magazine. And David, we are almost in summer. Actually, we are in summer, okay? And we were thinking about your book, 𝗟'𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗘, and we were thinking to suggest to our to the those who are listening to us that could be a good idea to bring with them this book to read even during summer holidays, because this book just is a novel as well as a managerial book, and is something has been very interesting in approaching this book and in translating this book. And is a nice book, is a funny book, and at the same time help us to reflect upon a lot of difficult aspects that can make our lives, either personal and professional, quite difficult. So just as a first question, why did you write 𝗟'𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗘 in this specific narrative form, so as a novel, rather than as a average managerial book? And how did you have the idea to bring so lively character in this book? How did you get this idea? How did you manage to create so really live and funny and nice character on this book?
Oh yeah, well, thank you, Barbara. It's so wonderful to be with you. And here is the book translated into Italian. I'm so excited that it's finally been translated in Italian. It's been translated now into 10 different languages, but Italian is the most important one. So we finally got that. So so I read a lot of books myself, and sometimes with self-help books and self-improvement books, they sometimes just go on too long, and sometimes they're a little bit boring, and there's a whole bunch of lists. And so I decided that I wanted to teach the concept about becoming a 𝗟'𝗕ologist and 𝗟'𝗕ology in a novel, in a story. So I think that people really learn from stories. All of the great teachers, always use stories. They're very good storytellers. So I decided that, I think I can present this book in a story form. And so I had basically 6 main characters. Alex is the main character, is the protagonist in the book. And Alex is married to Kim. They have 2 children, Laura and Michael. And they both have their own individual personalities. And then, of course, Alex's mentor ends up being a woman by the name of Victoria. And then Alex's coworker is named Chaz, who's trying to get Alex to stay in the same place. So I really, so in terms of the characters, Alex, I could really identify a lot with Alex because I've fallen into a lot of these traps myself. So probably half of Alex is me, so that was very easy for me to write about myself and my experiences, because I had struggled with these same 7 traps and falling into these traps. So that was very easy for me to, put myself in the place of Alex, in the story of Alex. And then I had certain people, some people asked, well, who was Victoria? Victoria was a combination of different people that I have respected and admired over the years, and their advice and wisdom and so forth. So that's how I decided to do it. And it was really fun. At first, it was really hard. And then it became so much fun to start writing about all of these characters and the stories. And I tried to make it very interesting and engaging. That's what people want in a book, right? something that is you learn a lot, but it's also interesting and engaging, and you want to get through it. And I keep a lot of suspense to the end, because it's a good story. All good stories have some suspense and drama in it, and so you have all of that in this book. So it's a very easy read. You can read it in, I think, 4 hours. So it doesn't take that long to read. So I hope that you pick it up and read it sometime this summer.
Oh, thank you very much, David. I can tell you, it's very easy to read, and I can imagine you had fun in writing it, because it's you can perceive the fun between the lines, and it's very nice to go through this book and to try to understand what will be going on, and how things will be for the characters, for all the people involved in this situation. And
absolutely.
And the setting as well is beautiful, but I can tell anything more.
The setting is in Hawaii.
Yes, it is. And I was reading, and during summer, actually, this book, the first time I read it, I said, oh, yeah, I would like to be there.
So it was in California for part of it, and then Hawaii. But of course, one of my favorite places is Italy.
Oh, yes.
And, here's a little, there's a little.
We are waiting for you. Yeah.
There's the Cinque Terre. So Italy is one of my favorite places on the planet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, David, a nice book, a nice novel, something you can read even, by the seaside. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there is a second level inside the story, because actually it makes you think a lot, actually. And as you stated before, the main character is for half, it's you, okay?
At least half of it, maybe more.
Yes. No, come on. And so is when you are reading it, it's just ask yourself, am I in this trap? Am I in this situation? By chance, do I know someone in this situation? So what do you mean exactly with the word traps? Because usually a trap is something that is set by someone against someone else, or something else as a trap, hunting. Who set the traps in our lives? And what's the meaning behind the word traps?
So my co-author is Stefan, and of course he's a mutual friend of ours, Barbara. Stefan Mardyks.
Yes, of course.
And, so we in working on this book together, Stefan is a chess player, and and he realized that in the game of chess, right, your objective is, of course, to win, and there's two things you need to do to win. The first is that you need to think several moves ahead of your opponent, right? If you only think 1 or 2 or 3 moves ahead, it's usually not enough. You got to be like 5 or 6 or even 10. The best chess players are like 15 moves ahead of their opponent. And secondly is you have to avoid the traps that they're setting up for you, okay? So that your opponent is trying to get you to fall into traps. And I'm not to suggest that life is like, sometimes there's bad characters and there's people that are, setting up traps. But I think life in general has become so much more advanced. The technology is great. But as a result of all these positive things that we see with technology, there are a lot of traps. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of ways in which we can be stopped and restrained, and from achieving the success that we're trying to achieve, or the goals that we're trying to achieve, or the vision that we're trying to reach. So there are a lot of traps in life. So I love the analogy of Kurt Lewin's force field analysis. He says, anytime you try to enact a change, you have your current state, and you have your desired state of where you
Yes.
want to go. I'll use a good practical example, like say weight loss. Say I'm at this weight and I'm hoping to lose, 10 pounds or 15 pounds or 10 kilos or whatever my goal is. I always have things that I can do, so in weight loss, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to have a good diet program. I'm going to do, all these things that are good, but there also are negative things. Those are called driving forces, those positive things. And then there's negative things. Those are really called the restraining forces that prevent us from being successful. So for me, this is just for David, there are 3 restraining forces for me to lose weight. One is late night binging. That's like eating past 6 p.m., lots of food. The second is not exercising first thing in the morning. So if I don't exercise first thing in the morning, it never happens, even though I say, I'll do it later. I got to do it.
No.
And the third is when I go to the movies, I get a big tub of popcorn, right?
Oh,
it's like
yes.
my comfort food. And that's not healthy. If I do that once, go to the movies once a week, So even though I do all these positive things, those negative things can undo those positive things and prevent me with my goal, to lose,
Yes.
10 kilos or whatever that is. And so it is with life. We always have, these restraining forces that are getting in the way. So those restraining forces, I refer to those as the traps, Barbara.
Yes.
Those are the things that are stopping us, that are preventing us from achieving our goals. And I think that most businesses, most companies today, most organizations today, they have an over focus on the driving forces and an under focus on the restraining forces. They don't spend enough time looking at the obstacles or the traps, as I call them, that could get in the way, that could prevent us from being successful. And so that's what this book is all about, is it's focusing on the traps that exist in life and work. And of course, we have a program. It's called Trapologists at Work. This is the manual in Italian. And so we look at the 7 traps at work. The book actually looks at 4 of those traps are around, our work, professional work, but 3 of the traps are around your own personal or family life.
Yes.
So we look at the 7, and some people say, well, why 7? Well, my father started it, Stephen R. Covey, that wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
So I can't be a Covey and have 5 traps,
No,
I gotta
no,
have
no.
7.
No, possible. 7 is a
So
magic number.
This is why the 7 is the magic number. So I look at the 7 most common modern traps. There's more than 7. Okay, trust me, there is more than 7. But I look at the biggest problems, I think. So I did a lot of research. Stefan and I did a lot of research on this. And these 7 in the book are the most prevalent traps that we fall into.
And actually, almost everyone can go through the book and say, okay, this is me, or this is my, or more than one, actually. I thought myself, okay, more than one is.
Totally.
So you mentioned the 7 traps, and you mentioned that they are the relevant ones. And you, together with Stefan Mardyks, make a lot of research to get there. And can you please illustrate them one by one with an example? So just give us a quickly review of these 7 traps and how do they
absolutely. Okay.
eat themselves?
Yeah. So the first trap talks about a marriage relationship or a partner relationship that you may have with somebody, and it's really about the silo trap in a relationship. And this is where we operate as a married single. So a lot of times people get married, but they still operate like they're not married. They still operate like an independent. And so one good example around this is household duties. Typically, Barbara, as you know, even though women work as well as the men, some women, choose to just be mothers and homemakers, and they don't work professionally, but household duties are typically fall on the women, even though they work.
Oh yes,
as well, and there's data, there's that shows this, that 80% of the household duties fall on women, and so I think that the men, Alex in this book, and I'm talking about David and other men, we need to step up and help with the household duties, and how they're divided and managed, and there needs to be more of an equal sharing. Right now, it's probably 80% women that are doing it all, and the men are only doing 20%, if that. So that needs to change, So I've had to step up my game. I think early on in my marriage, I wasn't very good at that. I've become very much better lately.
Okay.
And so I'm doing dishes, I'm washing clothes, I'm helping to clean the house. I'm doing much better than where I was. But that is really, we fall into this independent mindset. We fall into this silo where we think, okay, it's not a we, it's still operating like an individual. But when you come together in a marriage or in a partnership, it is about we, and it's about sharing those duties. And I think household duties is one where men can step up on this one.
I really appreciated this, David.
Yeah.
I really can say it. So the first is a silo as 1 + 1 is not, a more connection between people, is not, it's just focused on
people are not on the same page.
Yeah,
they're not operating like a team.
Ideas, my way of doing things, my way of thinking, and so forth.
Yeah.
And what is the second trap?
So the second trap is the debt trap. Okay. And as you know, debt, consumer debt, is it's a big problem. I know in my country, it's the highest it's ever been, in the United States. But it's this idea that we mortgage our future by taking on debt nowadays. I tell young people, it's the power of, I think Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world, right? So if we can learn to make interest rather than pay interest in our life, we're going to have a much better life, much better family life, and so forth. But so many of us are caught up into the debt trap, where we've taken on too much debt. Having a mortgage on your home is understandable, but a lot of times we don't live within our means, and we spend more than what we make. And as a result, we fall into this debt where we take on debt and we start servicing debt and paying interest. And, and then, honestly, I can say, unfortunately for me, I've spent more of my life paying interest than making interest, from investments. And so I wish, this is coming from somebody who's in their late 50s, speaking to the younger generation of, the people that are in the 20s and 30s. Be wise, save money, don't get into debt. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. And plan and work together with your partner or your spouse in making sure that you don't service debt the most of your professional life and married life. It's not worth it. No. So debt is a very, very, very big problem. It's a family problem. It's a personal problem. I don't know how Italy does. Maybe they're as bad as America, but avoid debt.
Let's say it's less common, probably.
Yeah.
But still, we have a lot of way of having very small debt. As you buy the TV.
Okay.
Or a mobile phone, or furniture, or small things, but adding one by one at the end of the month are getting heavier and heavier. So as you know, probably in Italy, everyone is, is looking for having a personal home. So we have a lot of people, family, owing his own home. So we have a mortgage for the home. It's quite, normal for us.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, in the last few years, we are actually adding some other things probably we need to take care of. It's not so big as in US,
Okay.
but it's nice to take care of it before it's getting a proper trap.
Yeah, totally. And if you start young, so the opposite of debt is investing and saving, right?
Yes.
So if you start young and you save only a small amount every month and you let compound interest help, it's amazing. So there was a story, and I think you've heard about this before maybe, but so where someone was saying, look, I'll give you $3 million now, or you could say 3 million euros, or you can take 1 penny and you can double it every day for 31 days. Which one would you take?
The second one.
It's the second one. It's kind of a trick question, but you just think, how can 1 penny be more in 31 days than $3 million now? Well, on day 29, it's like 2.7 million. And then it goes to 5.4, and then it goes to like 10.8 on day 31. So, but it's this idea that if you start early in saving, it can really compound.
Yes.
But the difference of adding another decade, so if you can add like 3 decades or 4 decades of savings, that fourth decade can make all the difference in terms of seeing your money just catapult.
Yes.
So that's the idea. Stay out of debt. Don't follow America's example.
No,
example.
No, it's not a good example.
Save and invest, so you can go to the Cinque Terre,
Oh, yes.
every year.
And so then you have the third trap is focalization.
Yeah. So it's this, the third trap is the busyness trap.
Yeah.
So, the busyness trap it's a huge problem. People are overwhelmed with emails, and they have so much work to do. We're drowning sometimes in, we have social media and other things. I want to read a couple things from the book that talks about why this is such a big problem. So we have more that's pulling at our attention than ever before. Technology has been designed to pull at our attention and makes us compulsively respond to it. The brain gets a dopamine rush from completing a task in a game or getting a message from somebody. Expectations have always been available. Computers and phones have dual purposes. They're good for work and entertainment. The lines can be easily blurred. Harder to distinguish between important and unimportant. Today's a very noisy world. Unlimited amount of options and choices to entertain us. So what happens is that we have, technology is great. It's provided all these things, but it's also made our life very, very busy. And we have a lot of distractions. And a lot of those things are pulling us in directions that are not helping us fulfill our mission and to fill our purpose, at work. And they're distracting us. Okay. They're taking us away. So we got to find a way to focus, to narrow our focus, and to say no. That's the biggest challenge. Is we have to learn to say no to the unimportant things. People have a hard time saying no. We always like to say yes, and then what happens is we overcommit ourselves, and then we're crazy busy, and we don't perform at our optimal best when we're like that.
And we don't have to think anymore, and to focus on what is important in our life. So we struggle with change, for example. That is, a sort of the fourth trap. So how do we can change? How can we change, David?
You have to be like Apple. So Apple, I think, is a terrific company. When Steve Jobs started it, he got kicked out of his own company, like 10 years later. And then he was brought back for the second time about 12 years after being out of the company for about 12 years. And at that time, Apple was very unfocused. They were, losing all kinds of money. Their sales were flat or declining. And it was because they were so unfocused. They had so many different products and so many different things that they did. They had their fingers in so many different pies, so to speak. And Steve Jobs made Apple be focused. And when he came back, he drew a 2x2 matrix and he says, we're going to make 2 products for the professional, 2 products for the consumer, and everything else has to go. And so he narrowed Apple's focus. Today, Apple has a $3 trillion market capitalization. That means they're worth $3 trillion in the value of the company. And they only have 5 to 10 products that make up most of the revenues. So it sounds like, narrowing your focus will make you smaller, but no, actually narrowing your focus helps you focus on the most important things so you can execute. So that's what we have to do, is we just have to decide, where can I narrow my focus? Where can I say no? Where am I getting distracted or pulled away? And what can I do to learn to say no more and to focus on the most important things.
So, David, Alex is set in the trap, and someone is helping him to get out.
Chaz Michael.
No, Chaz.
He's so bad. He's just trying to keep Alex in the, and we have that in our life, right?
Yes.
We have friends. Well, they say they're friends, but they keep us in bad habits. They keep us in, doing the same things and keep us in the status quo sometimes when we need to break out and change. So
how can we get out from the traps, or how
we get out of it but let's go to the 4th trap, okay, which is the procrastination trap, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many things that we put off, that we procrastinate, that we avoid making. And so that's the first thing we do. By the way, I've done this. I've asked this question globally, all over the world, and it works. And I ask people the question. I go, how many of you know one thing that you have been putting off at work that you should be doing? You should be doing this. You should be making this change. I'm not asking you to tell me. I'm just asking you to reflect one thing that that you've been procrastinating and you need to do. Everybody always has an answer. So the question is not whether there are things that we have procrastinated. The question is, why aren't we doing anything about it? Okay, why aren't we taking action? And so we all have, if we just start focusing on those 1 or 2 things that we've been procrastinating and start, stop putting them off and start making those changes. Change is very, very hard. People prefer to be in the status quo, and because change is uncomfortable, it's difficult, and people would rather, stay in the status quo. So it's very, very hard. But we have to, in order to improve and get better, we have to constantly be changing, and we have to try new things. We have to experiment. There's nothing wrong with trying new things. And if you're a business owner or a business leader, give your people a chance to try new things, to experiment, and to fail, and to celebrate failures as learnings rather than flaws, right? So a lot of times when people fail, if they get punished for it, then they're saying, well, I'm never going to take any risks. I'm never going to take any chances anymore, because if I take a chance and I fail, then I'll get fired from my job, or my boss will demote me, or they'll cut my pay, or whatever it is. You always want to encourage. That's the only way you get innovation, right? You get innovation through failures. That's how you improve. So if you look at all of the great breakthroughs in products, it's all of the same cycle. It's trying things, failing, learning from those failures, and then repeating. Try, fail, learn, repeat. Try, fail, learn, repeat. And so that's the way you get improvement and innovation, is by experimenting and learning from those experiments. The light bulb, we have lights here, you have lights there. Edison, that created it, it took 1,000 times to kind of finally create the light bulb. And people say, why do you keep doing this? He said, with every failure, I come closer to success. So it's about learning from our failures, improving. Now, it's not about doing the same dumb things again and again. That's the difference.
Improving is the key.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So we got to stop putting off, the things that we need to change, and take some risks. Don't be so risk averse. Well, a lot of people are way risk averse. They're just afraid. Yes. They're afraid of failure. They're trying to show a certain image, like everything's great. And we have that in social media, it's like everybody always on vacation and they're wearing the most beautiful clothes. Everything looks like it's perfect. Of course, that's not how it is, right? No. But they project that. So sometimes we try to project this perfectness, and it's not reality, right?
No.
Any of the great companies, any of the great products are all about it's about experimenting and learning from failures and getting better and getting better. That's how great innovation happens.
Thank you, David. So let's say that traps are a sort of journey in understanding yourself and trying to learn by your mistakes and help yourself to get out and even help others to don't fall in the same trap we were before. So it's a sort of, helping people as well, helping people around you.
That's what we teach in the book about a trapologist, is somebody that alerts another person, hey, here are these traps, and I'm going to help you through it. Yeah. So they're not only taking care of themselves, but they're thinking about other people. And that's what a good trapologist does, is I know these traps, I'm going to avoid them myself, but I'm going to get Barbara to do it too. Barbara, let me help you.
Yeah. So our time actually, unfortunately, is running out. And a last question is about, you mentioned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, wrote by your father, a lot of times ago, but still quite relevant, I would say. And it's very deep relationship between the two books behind the similarity of the titles. So what's the connection you can see between the two books?
So a lot of great connections. So both had 7, right? 7 habits, 7 traps. My father focused on 7 good habits, and I'm focused on 7 traps to avoid. So he was focusing on the driving forces, which are good, and I was focusing on the restraining forces. The other thing is, in the 7 habits, they talk about, my father talked about primary greatness and secondary greatness. And he said primary greatness is about character and who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Secondary greatness is about your fame or your accolades or your money, or and he says you always got to focus on your character, building your character. So in fact, the subtitle of the 7 habits is restoring the character ethic. Okay, so it was about getting back to you as a person and becoming a better person and a growing person and an evolving person. So I think there's a lot of similarities there too, because I'm also trying to help in my book you to become a better person, a better version of yourself by avoiding these traps, that are out there and are sucking our energy and are preventing us. They're keeping us from being successful. It's like driving a car You know, you have the accelerator and you have the brake. If I have my foot on the accelerator, but also my foot on the brake, I'm not going to go anywhere. You know, I'm just,
no, really.
So the answer is not to put your foot harder on the accelerator. The answer is to take your foot off the brake. So anyway, and the last thing too is principles. You know, my father was a big believer in teaching principles rather than practices. Practices can be like faddish. They can come in and out of style, but principles always can be applied, you know, to different circumstances. So, so in the book, Trap Tales, I teach about the basic principles that we need to follow to, you know, to be able to be successful. And one of those principles is to avoid traps, be aware of them and to avoid them, and then help others to avoid those as well. And when you do that, you become a trapologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, David. It's really been a pleasure to go through Trap Tales together with you. You gave us you know, some perspective to read this book. And I still appreciate it for the two levels you can go through. Either the novel form, the funny, nice, easy to read, you know, you get used to the character, and you really want to see and to learn what will be happening to them page by after page.
Yeah.
And then the second level, when you finish the book, you just rethink about what you read and say, okay, let's come back again and let's rethink on what I learned about myself and about my behavior, and ask myself if I can be a trapologist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope that your listeners will become readers.
Oh,
of
yes.
This book. And then when you do, send me a picture of you by, you know, reading the book in the Cinque Terre or
yes,
in Milano or Roma,
yes,
or wherever you're at.
In the Alps. I will be in the Alps. I will be sending the book in a wooden or up in the Alps. It would be beautiful.
Absolutely. And I'm on social media. It's at David 𝗟'𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗍. And I'd love to see a picture of you reading this book, and send it to me. I'll definitely respond to you. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, David, for staying with us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And
my pleasure.
Again, congratulations to you, to Stefan Mardyks, for this book. It's been very, very interesting and very powerful. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Barbara. And
have a nice summer.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.